Josephine Kaviti Musango is a professor at the Graduate School of Business at the University of Cape Town. She's a skilled resource economics and system dynamics professional and a transdisciplinary researcher. She also teaches system dynamics and sustainable development. Josephine's research entails using system dynamics in managing change and policy-related challenges in the energy transition, the green economy, and urban African energy issues. She has worked with professionals in other academic disciplines, governments at multiple levels, industry, and the community. Josephine, of course, is one of the founding members of the South African System Dynamics chapter, where she served as organizing secretary and vice president at one stage. She currently serves as the strategy oversight and international collaboration advisor for the chapter. She also serves as a policy council member on the International System Dynamics Society. So over to you, Josephine. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Nalini, for the introduction. I'm very grateful today to be here. And I also am reminded today that it is 6 years since Jay Forrester passed away on this day in November 2016. So as we celebrate a decade of changing minds, it's a moment for us to embrace and reflect where we have come from, and also to look forward on where we see ourselves in the next decade. And I think Nalini has been very instrumental in promoting the conference since the last 10 years, and it being incorporated within the System Dynamics chapter. So my presentation today is on advancing wisdom in system dynamics practice in South Africa. And the question is, why did I really choose this particular topic? So as a South Africa chapter, we contribute to the broader vision of the System Dynamics Society, which is about transforming society by making improvements to decision-making in government, commerce, and philanthropy. And Andres has already mentioned that we don't solve problems, but we help decision makers make better decisions for strategy and policy. So during this course of the year, I explored some of the issues that were discussed in the 40th, 50th, and 60th anniversary of the System Dynamics Society, in order to give us a perspective of where do we want to go as a South Africa chapter. So as you see on this slide, George Richardson discussed the deep and difficult problems of the future South Africa. This was part of a personal reflection during the 40th anniversary. And then we see Jay Forrester during the 50th anniversary. He looked into the status of the society at that point, and he cast a vision for the next 50 years. While John Starman had a quite interesting exploration during the 60th anniversary, for him, he asks, what would Jay do if he was young? And how would you build on existing methods, existing data and technology in order to improve the science and practice of system dynamics? So what I found very interesting is that all these issues that they discussed during those times are very relevant for South Africa. And what might be the most important issues that we need to consider for South Africa in the next decade? So I looked into the top 3 issues that we need to maybe consider as we look forward. But before we get to that, I would like to maybe share briefly on what the challenges and problems discussed in Richardson's and Jay's paper. So for Richardson, he discussed 8 problems of the future system dynamics. The first one was about understanding the model behavior, which was mainly about development of softwares that can capture the links between the stocks and flows and the behavior, on the dynamic behavior that emerges from the system structure. But we've seen developments in the softwares since the last 20 years. So there's some development in that area. The second problem was about accumulating wise wisdom. This is mainly how we can improve practice, particularly for the new system dynamicists who come into the field. Since the last 20 years, we've also seen development in that area. We can now learn from J. Forester's classics. I don't know whether most of you are aware of the system dynamics school that was established by the society. Then the third problem was about the advancing practice, where there are currently very good introductions, textbooks, workshops, but there's a lack of workshops that can advance practitioners to higher or advanced levels of knowledge. What we've been seeing over the time is that people either collaborate to advance their knowledge, or they reinvent themselves in the field on their own. This is still one of the challenges that hasn't been is still ongoing now and within the society as well. The fourth problem is about accumulating results, are mainly about bringing about shared understanding with predictive power, where we go beyond just a craft about the methodology, but also improving the rigor in science in ways that we can produce reliable results, that we can avoid reinventing previous work and rather to build on existing work. And then the fifth problem was about making models accessible. And this is mainly how we can make them available to the widest possible audience, not just either in academics or policy, but also getting into the public space. And then the sixth is about mapping qualitative and quantitative modeling. This is still an ongoing challenge. And the question is, what are the wise uses of qualitative mapping and quantitative modeling? The seventh problem is widening the base, where we bring system dynamics to the lower level, particularly the elementary levels. And the eighth problem is mainly about the confidence and validation, where we establish procedures and standards for improving the model confidence. We've seen various development from the software point of view in this particular problem. Then for J, he identified three challenges that existed during the 50th challenge, the 50th anniversary. And the first one is about how do we make system dynamics useful to make impact in government policies. And I think this is a huge issue that we need to take into consideration going forward. The second challenge is about how do we influence high leverage policies, because currently when faced with complex challenges, the decision makers tend to draw or to low leverage policies rather than the high leverage policies. And this is where system dynamics has got the potential to help in the decision makers. Then the third challenge is about the quality of work in system dynamics. How do we improve the quality of work in system dynamics going forward? He cast a vision on two areas where it's more about developing promoters. And the promoters here is the emerging leadership group in the field who can support the work on system dynamics, maybe through private funding and so on, as well as public understanding to support the use of system dynamics in governments. Now, turning to South Africa, the three most important areas that I think we might think advancing in the next 10 years include accumulating wise teaching and research practice, modeling beyond introductory skills, and improving qualitative and quantitative modeling practice. And I just want to quickly, briefly take you through what I mean by this. The first one on accumulating wise teaching and research practice, we need teaching practice to accelerate the growth in modeling capabilities. This is also a huge problem in the chapter, in the society. And the question was about, is system dynamics the missing subject in our education system? Currently, we do not have universities that are devoted to maybe 3-year degree program in system dynamics in South Africa. But we've seen huge developments with regards to short courses, workshops in system dynamics. What we can identify is perhaps also leveraging the wide resources within the system dynamics society, which includes MOOCs from Bergen University, but also within South Africa, look into what can we do within the education system to support this acceleration of growth in modeling capabilities. Because if you don't have registrations for beginners, they will not go through to becoming experienced. And in this stock and flow structure, I haven't shown dropouts in terms of people leaving and moving to other skills. Then one thing I would like to mention, what interestingly, is that the chapter published 2 books. And very interestingly, very few people know about the first book, which as per yesterday when I checked, it is only cited twice. Yet it was introduced to support government decision making in Africa's development planning using system dynamics. The second book recently published, authored by Nalini, Andres, and myself. It's a book that brings a wisdom from corporate consulting and academic to advance the practice of system dynamics to new modelers and new beginners to intermediate modelers. Somebody is speaking. I had somebody speaking. Okay, I can go ahead. So I think it's a high time to consider looking into bringing these books in within the South Africa market and also Africa, that they can be recognized to help in advancing and accumulating this wisdom in system dynamics. Another aspect is about wise practice in problem identification and system conceptualization in research practices. There's the need to identify that problem identification is very crucial, because this can help you in dealing with so many issues that can help to address the real problem rather than the symptom of a problem. There are different methods, modeling processes that we can follow, all the way from Randers to Pillay et al. Choose one that you think you're comfortable with and work with it, and then you can create your own craft on how you can work through them. But they all follow the same process, the same theoretical requirements, and so forth. And it is very easy for new modelers to jump into the software. And the practice here is to understand this is also a rigorous scientific process that can be improved and ensure that we have rigor in our modeling process in South Africa. As an example, is that this is work that a modeling process that we did for mohair. And this took almost 40 to 50% of the modeling time in doing the problem identification. But it was quite interesting in 2 ways. The first one is that it helped in shifting the stakeholders' models to identify the root problem. So we ended up modeling the root problem rather than a symptom of a problem. And it also helped us in modeling a problem within a system rather than modeling a system. So that's really crucial in identifying the problem to ensure that you are dealing with the root problem and the problem within a system. And I just before we got this meeting, I got a message that one of the stakeholders here, he passed away. So sad to know that, and I didn't know. Okay. Now the second aspect that we might consider for system dynamics chapter is the how learning the art and science of system dynamics modeling to solve the pressing issues in Africa. At this moment, we have issues around energy access, poverty, health, climate change, and so on. The issue of energy transition is also a concern in Africa, and how we can be able to transition sustainably and ensuring that socioeconomic issues are not compromised. So we need to be able to have system dynamics that address Africa's issues that matter the most. And asking what Forrester asked, where are the people who can carry system dynamics to the public in Africa issues that matter the most? Then the third issue is about improving qualitative and quantitative modeling. As I mentioned earlier, debate still exists about this issue within the system dynamics community. The concern here is about watering system dynamics to systems thinking, because systems thinking is not system dynamics. And what I argue here is that system dynamics consist of the phases of qualitative, quantitative, qualitative mixed methods, and the need to understand that if you're doing your modeling and you're using qualitative, you need to embed it within the system dynamics modeling process that will enable you to make wise decision on whether to move towards simulation or not. Because the questions here is about having a very good working system dynamics model, simulation model that no one uses, and having a qualitative analysis that enables the stakeholders to improve their mental models about the issue. But what we need to realize is that qualitative modeling does not help us in understanding the high leverage intervention points. So the need for simulation is to help the decision makers in identifying the high leverage intervention points. Now, looking forward for the next decade or to the next decade, what does this mean for you and for me? Okay, I do not have an answer at the moment, but I do have a challenge for you as well as for me. And this challenge is, what is the one thing that you can do to help system dynamics in addressing Africa's problems of the 21st century in the next decade? I hope you can respond to this question on the Google form that I'm going to post on the chat. And with that, I really thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Josephine. That was indeed very, very insightful. And based on your experience, I think you've actually identified some key leverage points. I think that's actually quite an interesting challenge in terms of the question that you've posed, that you've put out there. We do have some questions. We've got one from Corneille. He says, this has been a very relevant discussion. In your experience, what is a realistic time frame and environment to become proficient in system dynamics?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Corneille, for that question. Yeah, so system dynamics modeling, you become proficient through practice. That's one of the things. You won't build your first model and then call yourself, I'm an experienced system dynamicist. It comes through practice, also working with the experienced system dynamics modelers that can help you to advance that skill. So I would say 3 to 4, 5 years, that could be a period where you become more proficient with system dynamics modeling, but you don't stop there. You have to be modeling. It's like any other skill, that there's the art of it and there's also the science of it. The art of it, you end up developing your own style on how you can do the modeling. So for example, I can run a system dynamics modeling workshop, but I don't tell people it's system dynamics workshop. It's behind the scenes. I know I'm following the system dynamics modeling process, but I'm not calling it system dynamics because I want to make it relevant to the people. Yeah, so it comes with experience. That's very crucial. Yeah, but in terms of time frame, it also depends on how quick you learn. There are other factors apart from the time. But one thing you need to know is that you won't learn system dynamics through osmosis. And I remember Jay Forrester mentioning that system dynamics is actually difficult to learn. It's difficult to learn, and we need to find ways on how we can advance this field. Thank you.
Thanks, Josephine. And we have Gift, who actually said that understanding the theory of system dynamics is also important for one to become a good modeler. And that is also obviously quite crucial. Are there any other questions? I think we do have an opportunity for one more question. You are allowed to actually speak out. The questions don't always have to be typed in the chat. Okay, all right. I think that's about it, but I've just got one question for you, Josephine. I know it's a little bit of a difficult one, but it's one that I think a lot of societies, a lot of chapters are grappling with. Now, based on your experience in the academic space, what do you think are the factors that are influencing, in my opinion, lack of participation in these platforms and these opportunities for students to actually grow their skills and to become involved? You know, from what I've noticed, there's just been a decline in terms of the amount of participation in conferences, in submitting papers, in write-ups, and so on by students. What do you think is actually contributing to that? Maybe one factor, or?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Nalini, for that question. It's not a simple question with a simple answer. And I think this could be a lifetime project to explore such question. But based on my experience in the teaching, I think system dynamics pushes us to your wit's end, and it moves you to change your mind or shifting your mind. And I think that struggle of you shifting your mind from the way you do things, that's a struggle that people have, and people want to still continue doing the things they used to doing and the way they do it, and not wanting to change. But what I've noticed is that if you transform and take on system dynamics, you never turn back. And I think there's that tension of how do we catalyze the people to shift to that love of doing the modeling. I don't have an answer for that, but it's something that maybe through collaboration we can be able to find a way to do that. Yes, thank you. You're muted.
I have a question here. Can I ask? Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So myself, Rhythm Singh, I'm working as an assistant professor at IIT Roorkee in India. So I have been working, I worked on energy modeling problems for my master's and PhD programs. And I got introduced to system dynamics after my PhD, actually. So I'm still venturing into this field, sort of new. And I have a couple of master's students who are working with me for their master's dissertation and working on system dynamics. But I mean, I'm pretty new, so I just wanted your opinion, because we sent a paper for publication in one of the journals, and we've been a little bit struggling with that part. So I just wanted to know whether it's because we are not very much into the thing, or is there a less acceptability of system dynamics overall in academia? What is your experience regarding that in terms of publication and those things? Yeah.
Yes, so thank you so much for that question. Actually, that currently it's much better than when I started system dynamics way back in 2005. My first paper on system dynamics took almost 2 years to be published, and we had to remove